We're looking at Genesis 15. As I mentioned in the background, one of the key features here is a covenant ceremony. The covenant in the ancient world was solemnized by a ceremony. And the ceremony was that you cut a sacrificial animal in half. Animals hated covenant ceremonies. You lay the two bleeding halves on the ground, and the partners to the covenant or the representatives step between those, link arms, and say, "May God do so to me if I ever break our covenant." I like to use that in wedding ceremonies. I like to watch the groom go white. What did I just say? May God come after me with a meat cleaver if I ever break this covenant. That's what's going on. It's here. We see it also again at Mount Sinai, where it was represented symbolically when Moses killed 12 bulls, caught their blood, a lot of blood in 12 bulls, splashed half of it on the altar, and then said to the people, "Are you going to keep this covenant?" He had already recited it to them and read it to them, and they said, "Yes." May God strike me dead if I ever break this covenant. And in 5 weeks, they would be dancing around a golden idol, thanking it for having delivered them from Egypt. And that, of course, is just the beginning. So, covenant. So, how does God represent himself to Abraham this time? What does verse 1 say?
Vision.
In a vision. Chapter 12, verse 1, the Lord said. Chapter 12, verse 7, the Lord appeared. Chapter 13, verse 14, the Lord said. And now here, after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Why the variety?
He's not a boring God.
Speaking to all of his senses? He's not a boring God. Yes, he is the creator. God hates doing the same thing twice. I've already done that. This was the problem that the Hebrew people had in Babylon. When they finally were convinced, yes, God is going to deliver us, they knew how he was going to do it. One of their ladies was going to have a baby, and they would put the baby in a basket in the Euphrates River. And the Babylonian princess would find him, and he would grow up, and they would cross the Euphrates dry shod. And God said, I've already done that once. This time, I think I'll use a pagan emperor who doesn't know my name, who will let you go. And in Isaiah 45, basically, they say, you can't do that. And God says, I can't. Does the pot say to the potter, you can't do that? No. He's creative. And some of you have heard me say this before. The one thing you know when you put God in a box, you are shortly going to have a broken box. So the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Now that statement is a little interesting. It's not God spoke to Abram in a vision, or God appeared in a vision. It's the word of the Lord came in a vision. What do you think is the significance of that?
Could be Jesus.
Jesus?
Jesus the word.
Well, sort of in keeping with the idea of the vision, it's the idea that you can communicate in a number of ways. And I think it's follows on what you just said. He's being so creative.
Okay, it fits the idea of the vision. Raj?
Abraham also is getting to know God closer, better, and he's able to sense even through vision.
Okay, Abram is getting closer to God and he can sense even through a vision.
It's a revealed movement of your mind that's being recorded, or you see God from different perspectives, so he enhances what he's trying to tell us.
Okay, okay. This concept of the word of the Lord, I don't know that this is the first time this has appeared, but if not, it's one of the very early times. The idea of the revelation of God, God revealing himself, more than just words. This is the word. David has said, Jesus, I don't think so, but it's certainly pointing in that direction. He is the ultimate revelation. So I think we might say God revealed himself. Not merely himself, but who he is, what he wants Abram to know. All of this, I think, is bound up in that idea, the word of the Lord. It's not just a sentence, not just a series of words. It's bigger than that. The revelation of God came. Okay. Now, here's the English Standard Version. Fear not, I am your shield. Your reward will be very great. What was Abraham afraid of? Dying childless. Yes, it's been now 12 years. What else?
Legacy.
No legacy? What else?
Right decisions on this past couple of weeks of his life.
Okay, making right decisions, not making right decisions. No heir.
Promised land.
He doesn't know for sure about the promised land. I think there's something simpler than that. He's scared to death of this vision.
First one.
Over and over, when God appears to people, he says, don't be afraid. Remember, that's what Jesus said when he showed up in the upper room, having walked through the wall. Don't be scared. This is God. This is the fear of the Lord. Scared to death of who this is. We tend, unfortunately, because Jesus has invited us into the throne room, we tend to take God pretty much for granted. This is God. This is God who snapped his fingers and the Big Dipper jumped off the end. This is God. But God says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And that's the other side of it. Yes, the fear of the Lord, the awe of him, but he invites us in. Forgive me, I've said this many times before, but it is a blast furnace inviting a bale of hay to come in. Don't worry, it's all right. What? It's all right. I won't consume you. So yes, I think all of those are involved. Fear not, I am your shield. Your reward will be very great. Now, here's the NIV. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Oh, I'm your shield, and your reward will be very great. I'm your shield, your very great reward. This is why you all need to take Hebrew. Let me give you a Hebrew lesson here. The Hebrew says, now the problem is Hebrew has no copula verb. They don't have the am, is, was, are. And again, you think English is simple? I am, you are. What? I am, he is. What? Hebrew doesn't have one of those. You simply have to infer it. You have to understand it. So, is that how we should read it? Perhaps. Perhaps. There's nothing wrong with the ESV reading. But it's also possible that we're not intending to put that in there. And the interesting thing is that in Hebrew, you have little signs, rather like commas or semicolons, that tell you, does this go with that, or is there a separation? Well, the interesting thing is, in this case, the connector, which looks like that, points that direction, which suggests that we ought to read it. I am your reward, your shield that is very great. Which one is it? Pay your money and take your choice. Both are possibilities that you have to consider. So, let's talk about the idea. I think this is the correct one. But let's talk about. Oh, I got that backwards. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Here I am teaching you Hebrew with the wrong words. Not sure what's happened to this board, but it is. I am your shield. Your very great reward. Okay, let's talk about that. What does it mean for God to be your shield? Protector?
He's on our side.
He's on our side. He's for us.
He's also our sovereign. The shield was representative of the king.
Okay, the shield is a representative of the king. He's our sovereign. I want to talk more about that in a minute, but yes, I think those are the key ideas. Now, suppose this understanding is right. I am your shield, your very great reward. How is God our reward?
Just having a relationship with him is the reward.
Having a relationship with him is a reward.
Not what he can do for us,
Okay,
who he is.
who he is,
Knowing him.
knowing him,
Fine.
he'll provide. Yes,
I think the verse, apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from God, we are nothing.
okay,
Is there an aspect of giving here? The idea that he says, your sheep, so he's giving himself to Abram.
absolutely, absolutely. Here's this idea. I'm for you, I'm on your side, I want to protect you. I want to be in the end what you are aiming at. In a real sense, if you have God, you have everything. If you don't have God, you have nothing. Pauline?
I would say also, it means that the reward is being invited to be in God's family.
Yes, yes, yes. But I would say this, he doesn't say, I'll give you a reward. He says, I am your reward. And as several of you said, knowing him is the payoff. Being in a relationship with him is a payoff. And this is what the Bible wants to say again and again. If you have God and nothing else, you have everything. Now that's hard to believe. We want yes, God, as long as I have you and health, everything's fine. As long as I have you and wealth, everything's fine. As long as I have you and a loving family, everything's fine. But the saints across the centuries have told us, if you've got God, you've got everything. Without God, absence of health is a great tragedy. Without God, poverty is a great tragedy. But with him, the saints have told us, it's all right. It's all right. Miss Hewitt, that Glenn mentioned, a student threw a heavy slate at her, broke her back. She was never able to teach again, but she had God. Amy Carmichael, missionary to India, saving little girls who were sold to the temples to be used as prostitutes. 51 years old. God is blessing her. The orphanage is growing. She goes out at twilight to look at some building that was beginning, fell into an uncovered trench, broke her ankle. In a few weeks. No, she never left her bed for 20 years. In that 20 years, she wrote 31 books, all of which have been a blessing, many of which are still in print. God plus God. Now again, it's easy for us to sit here in a pleasant room and say, oh yeah, when indeed everything is taken from us, then it's a little different. I'm your reward. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The motto of Rebecca Nazarene University is Esse quam videre, to be rather than to seem to be.
Motto of Tribeca University, to seem to be rather than to seem to be.
Mhm.
So wonderful, wonderful declaration. What does Abram say? Oh God, thank you. That is a wonderful promise. I am going to live in that. You're a wonderful God. What does he say?
In the, oh Lord God,
Yeah. Come on, God, let's get real here. Yeah. Now, what about that?
He didn't have the Bible.
He didn't have the Bible, that's true. He is creating Bible.
Yeah.
Is that okay or not?
He's being real to God.
He's being real to God. God knows what he's thinking.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So often, you and I give the stained glass response when inside we're thinking, come on. You can be real with God.
He isn't threatened.
God is not threatened. How are you going to reward me?
Oh.
And God does not respond by zapping him with a lightning bolt. How dare you talk back to God like that? How dare you disbelieve me? No. No.
God.
But, and it strikes me that Abram's saying there's nothing greater than having a child, than having an heir. Because he's saying, whatever you can give me, if it's not an heir, it's not as good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Whatever you can give me is not as good as an heir. Now that theme of children runs right through the Bible. It was the burning issue in the ancient world.
Mhm.
Today, we're worried about overpopulation, but that was not a concern there. And so the whole aspect of the fertility religion, the importance of the fertility goddesses, somehow we got to have children.
Mhm.
If you die without children, you might as well never have lived. Now, thank God we got beyond that with the scriptures, but that's the reality there.
Mhm.
You need boys to work. I think about that regularly. I had two boys, and they were not very good workers, but I was thinking yesterday, I have a wisteria bush, which is bending over, and it needs to be tied up to the post. And I was thinking, I need a boy to hold that thing up while I tie it. I don't have a boy.
Mhm.
I need boys to work, to inherit the land that I've worked so hard on. I need girls who can marry my neighbor's boys and attach their land to mine.
Yeah.
I was reading just this morning in Kings, Elisha, always get those two mixed up. Elisha, this rich lady has given him a room in her house. He stops there every time he's passing by. And he says to his servant Gehazi, what can we do for her? Gehazi says, well, her husband is old and she does not have a son. Got it.
Mhm.
There it is. There it is. So, yes, God. a servant in my household will be my heir. Now, it's interesting. I mentioned in the next lesson, we've got this literature from the city of Mari. Mari was located on the great bend of the Euphrates. It's the point from which you leave to go out to Palmyra and Damascus and on down to Egypt. And you know, one of these accidents of archaeology, we discovered a huge library. In the library, there is a passage which says, if you need a loan, your servant, actually the banker, is listed as your heir. And some people think maybe that's what's going on here. Why would a servant be his heir? Well, is this Eliezer actually his banker who is traveling along with Abram so that if Abram dies, he gets his loan back? Don't know that for sure, but it's an interesting possibility. Then notice again the phrase, verse 4.
But the word of the Lord came to him.
The word of the Lord.
Yes,
Is it just a message or is it more than a message? It's a message that contains a revelation of the character and nature of God. That man will not be your heir, but a son coming from your own body will be your heir. Wow. Wow. Then he took him outside. And God showed him the skies. Now, why did he do that?
Back then, you could see the sky.
You can see the sky. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Creator.
God has said, you're going to have an heir. Isn't that enough?
Show and tell. Evidence.
Show and tell. Why?
Well, I think Abram was worried about his posterity.
Oh, yes.
And so therefore God is like, okay, you're worried about that. Let me show you how great it's actually.
Yes. Why aren't words enough?
We're human.
Because we're human. Very.
Maybe just God showing, this is your finite thinking. Me being a very great reward.
Okay, okay.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. As humans, it's very discouraging to me. I meet people who heard me preach 20 years ago, and they remember the illustrations. I have no idea what I was talking about. The picture was great, and what the picture was about didn't quite connect. But that's it. That's it. As humans, we need, again, it seems to me, it's this physical and spirit connection. In some sense, words are spirit. The illustration is the physical. And we need both. Physical alone is not enough. But on the other hand, combining those two, something connects. God said, I'm your shield, your very great reward, and Abraham didn't believe it. But now he takes him outside. Said, would you please count the stars for me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. God, this is crazy. That's how many children you're going to have. And what does it say? Verse 6.
And he believed the Lord.
Yes. He believed.
Isn't it also? I mean, obviously Abraham didn't, he didn't know what to do. What does very great reward mean when you don't know what the content of that is? So there's a certain amount of belief, non-belief, I suppose, in that. It's like, well, what do you mean, Lord? Is kind of the question of when you say you're the very great reward, what does that mean? So I don't know what to believe yet.
Yeah, but he says, how are you gonna do that? Come on. It's not merely help me to understand. It's, I can't imagine how you can do that, God. You're my reward, big deal. My servant is gonna inherit everything you give me. So I don't think it's just ignorance. I think there's more of skepticism there. And again, I say, God says, okay. Okay, you got a problem with that? Come out here. What now? Now, I'm gonna go back to the garden. How did the problem begin in the garden? What did the snake attack?
God's trustworthiness.
God's trustworthiness. You can't trust him. He's not on your side. He doesn't want to give you what you need. He doesn't want to give you what you want. Yes.
I don't know if this is connecting or not, but it makes me think of something that I read that Dr. Kimon says, that's, this is, I'm sort of paraphrase, but when we seek the gifts, his gifts rather than the giver, that's when it becomes idolatry.
Yeah.
Something more like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's, at least I see it in myself, that's the tendency, I think, of our hearts.
Yeah. Why do I serve you? In order to get.
Off him and to what he gives.
Okay, so they didn't trust God. Oh no, Mr. Snake. He told us that if we ate this, we would die. He's caring about us. But if you can't trust him, what comes next?
Disobedience.
No, there's a step in between. Doubt. I don't believe you. You say I'll die. The snake tells me I won't. I believe the snake, not you. Because I can't trust you. You don't want my best. So you say stuff to me that's not true. So I said earlier that when God said, if you'll leave home and go where I send you, I'll give you all these things. A baby, land, a name. And all the angels held their breath. Is he going to do it? Is he going to trust him? No. Leaving home is too high a price to pay. I don't trust you. Abram trusted God, and all the angels went, there's hope for the world. Now they're holding their breath again. Abram, look up there. I said, I am your shield, your very great reward. And what did Abram do? Leave. And the angels went, all right. Second test passed. He's believed God. And so God says, if any man will confess that Jesus is Lord and will believe in his heart that he has raised him from the dead, he will be saved. Come on. Come on. My whole eternal destiny hangs on what I say with my mouth and believe with my heart? Really? Do you believe? It's a crazy statement. It really is. Do you believe? And it was accounted to him as righteousness. What's that mean?
Right relation with God.
Yeah, he's in a right relationship with God.
He is now in a right relationship with God.
Now,
Believing God is the only right thing a human can do. If we won't believe God, then everything else we do is wrong.
What it doesn't say there is that all of his ethics is fixed.
That he is ethically right. Yeah, if you believe God, then everything you do is right. Not necessarily. But there it is. Let's look at the references. Paul lands on this, as you probably remember. Romans chapter 4, verse 3.
What does scripture say? Abraham believes God and it was credited to him as righteousness.
Yes. Yes. Then verses 20 through 24. Let's read several verses. Someone read verse 20.
God's promise. In fact, his faith grew stronger, and in this he brought glory to God.
21, please.
And being fully assured that what God had promised, he was able also to perform.
He was able. 22.
And because of Abraham's faith, God declared him to be righteous.
23.
The words that was credited to him were written not for him alone,
Go ahead with 24.
but also for us, giving God will credit righteousness for us who believe in him, who raised Jesus our Lord from the dead.
Okay, now let's go a few pages over to Galatians. Galatians 3:6.
Those who seem to be something, whatever they were, it makes no difference to me. God shows personal favoritism to no man.
Is that 3:6?
Oh, you said 3:6, I thought you said 2:6.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Just as Abraham believed God and it was accounted to him for righteousness.
Yes, yes. Now here's the issue. What did the Jews believe?
Follow the law. Follow the law.
You have to follow the law. You have to do every cotton picking word God says. What does Paul say?
Got the cart before the horse.
You've got the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
You believe him, first of all. Now, we've talked about this before. What does it mean to believe? Now, this is right at the beginning of the process here, but what does it mean to believe?
Full weight.
To put your weight down. And again, Nancy might be thinking of my illustration. I believe this is a chair. I'm confident this is a chair. I'm confident it's a strong chair. Now then. And you say, sit in it. I believe it's a chair. I believe it's a strong chair. Sit in it. I believe it's a chair. Is there an intellectual component? Absolutely. But ultimately, belief is to entrust yourself to it, to put your weight down. So to believe in Jesus Christ, yes, he is the divine Son of God. Yes, he died for the sins of the whole world. He died for my sins. I'm going to stake my life on that crazy idea. And again, folks, it's crazy that something that happened to an itinerant Nazarene preacher 2,000 years ago, 10,000 miles from here, that determines your eternal destiny? That's crazy. But that's what we believe. So he did the right thing. Now, what Jeff was sort of hinting at here, this idea that, oh, I believe, so therefore God thinks I'm righteous even when I live like the devil. That's not what we're talking about. And that, unfortunately, in too many evangelical circles today is the idea. God looks at me through Jesus-colored glasses, and he doesn't know that I'm living like hell. No, no. Believing him is the right thing to do. And if you do believe him, God says, you're right with me. Okay, good. Now, here we go again. He said, I am Yahweh, who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. I think this is further education for Abram. Oh my. Oh my. You're not just one of the gods. You are my God. And you're, again, we've talked about this whole issue of the name of God. In Exodus, God says to Moses, by my name Yahweh I was not known. Here it is. I suspect it's the idea of the full implications of my name. David says the character. I don't know. But anyway, it's I am Yahweh, who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to take possession of it. Now look at verse 8. Abram said, Yahweh, Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? You believed him when he said, you're going to have more kids than stars. Now I want you to go back to the first chapter of Luke. Oh my goodness. Oh dear. Okay. Having too much fun here. Luke chapter 1. An angel of the Lord appeared to Zechariah, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and gripped with fear. And the angel said to him, fear not. Zechariah, your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son. Remember what I said about children in the Bible? It's a theme that runs right through it. And you are to call him John. He'll be a joy and delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth. For he'll be great in the sight of the Lord. He's never to take wine or other fermented drink. He'll be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he's born. Many of the people of Israel will he bring back to the Lord their God. He'll go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous. That's from the end of Malachi. 400 years have passed. To make ready a people prepared for the Lord. And Zechariah asked the angel, how can I be sure of this? Literally, how can I know this? It's a direct quote. And he said, hey, buddy, I'm Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. Because you did not believe my words, you will be silent. For saying the very same thing Abram said 1800 years earlier, Zechariah is struck dumb. What happens to Abram? Nothing. God gives him a covenant. What's the difference? Abram had to wait a lot longer. Why doesn't God condemn him for his lack of faith?
He was not given the examples.
He doesn't know better.
He doesn't know better.
Abram's faith is developing and God is patient to bring him along.
Yes, yes, yes. Zechariah should know better. Zechariah has had a whole lot more education.
Yeah.
To those to whom it is given, too much is be expected. Is there a lesson here for us? Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for your word. Thank you for your patience with Abram, and we confess with us. Thank you. Help us, Lord, to believe, not merely intellectually. Help each of us to ask that question, do I believe in Jesus Christ? And let it be so that we do with all our hearts. In your name, amen. Thank you so much.